What is up, everybody? Welcome here to the Devy Royale YouTube channel. I've been going live on YouTube and on Twitter for the last couple weeks. It's been a lot of fun dropping questions in there in the comments. We're gonna do another rookie mock. We're kind of do these every couple weeks here. I gotta pop in real quick what the tight end premium is. So this is a super flex tight end premium, basically PPR. We're gonna do 5 rounds. We're going deep here on the pod today, or just kind of talking about it here on the channel. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to. So whatever it is. So if it's, hey, I got a rookie question, I got a Devy question, Dynasty question, just throw it in. This is more meant just to be kind of just a chat, talk about kind of some of the rookies, maybe some of the Dynasty discussions going on out there, why we mock. And I'll talk about the mock, but we know before we know landing spots, not a ton that we can do here, but it is kind of interesting to talk about trade values and all of that. So we're going to get started. Again, this is a quick mock, 30 seconds here for all these guys that are in here. And we're just going to kind of go through. So super flex tight end premium here. But if you have any comments, questions, I know last week I took trade questions. If you have trade questions, you can dive it in here. Really just like talking here and going through kind of some of the stuff out there on a little Saturday morning. I'm out here in the West Coast, so I'm up here a little early. But I have kids, so I've been up for I think 3 hours now. So first pick here off the board, Ashton Jeanty. That's pretty consensus with most of the rookie mocks that we see. I went on a fun podcast yesterday, channel, and we talked about kind of, based on super flex values, right? Quarterbacks, running backs, where do they go? We're really not seeing Cam Ward go that high, right? We're kind of seeing him go in the 104 to 106 range. We'll see where he goes in this mock. I think that if you're going to go quarterback, Cam Ward is that guy. I think he is worth the top 2 pick if you need a quarterback on your team, right? Especially in a down quarterback class. And it's hard. It depends on the market. I always talk about markets a lot on here. But in your league, if quarterback market is difficult, then you're gonna have to pay up for one, right? You might have to pay with that 101 to get your quarterback. It really just depends on that league and how they value those guys. I think that's the biggest kind of question when you talk about where should Cam Ward go, where should Shedeur Sanders go. It's all about the micro market of your league, right? That's really the key there. Now, and this is pretty interesting, kind of how the board comes out, right? So we've seen this happen a bunch of times. You got, Jeanty and Hampton there, McMillan, you got Hunter, and Hunter is the big piece. We talked about it yesterday on the show that I did, but if you're sitting there and you're telling me that Travis Hunter is the team comes out, they draft him, and they say, hey, Travis is going to be that guy. Like, Travis is going to be our wide receiver 1. Let's say it's the Browns. Let's say it's whoever. And so they say that. They go out there and say, hey, he's our guy. He's wide receiver 1, in my opinion, right? He would be before Travis Hunter. Or excuse me, Ted McMillan. Like, if the team came out and said, hey, he's going to get all the usage, we're going to look at him and getting the targets. We're going to look at him getting, he's our guy. I think you put him into the top 4. I think you have to. Now, even if he says 50-50, I still think he's worth a top 9 pick, right? Or 8 pick because of his upside and his value there. I think that's what you're really looking at when you're looking at Travis Hunter in that range because of the unique talent he is. And like I mentioned yesterday, I mean, there's a chance that you're looking at, let's say he does get drafted and a team comes out and says, hey, we're going to have him play defense, and 75% of the time, you still got that 25%. But what happens if they have an injury, on their wide receiver room? What happens if they look at it and say, wow, we really need some weapons in that room? That might shift. That might change. So you draft him at 109, you might be getting a hell of a value, right? So that is kind of the Travis Hunter discussion. Like, I like him. You want to go top 5? I get it. Like, let's say based on this mock, he's there. And that's where that landing spot is. Totally understand it in there. I'm going to get to some comments. Hey, appreciate you. Coffee. Hey. All right. I appreciate it. All right. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the tight end premium. So let's look at the tight end premium and where they're at. So this is 1.75 tight end premium here. Tyler Warren goes at 106. And then Loveland goes at 109. I almost took Loveland with my pick, but I took Travion Henderson because he was sitting there still. And I think that's, generally speaking, where you're looking at. Warren in 2 tight end premium, the 2-point tight end premium. I've seen him go as high as 102, 103. Loveland, he's fallen a little bit, but if there's that much discrepancy between the two, I kind of like the Loveland value there, right? I could have easily taken him at 108, but that's probably the lowest I've seen Travion fall. in these mocks, I haven't seen him go at that 108-ish mark. And so if that's the case, if that's where he's kind of leaning with his 3-down ability, I will take him there. Shedeur at 107, I think he's across the board, right? I think that, I saw him go 112 recently. I've seen him go 104. It is interesting. What I want to do is I'm going to pull up kind of some of the values here in a little bit. We'll look at some Dynasty Calc values, Data Lab values and stuff like that to kind of go through it. Just to see kind of where everybody is at in terms of their value as opposed to kind of where they're getting drafted in startups. But Shedeur, I think, is the fun one. I think, like I mentioned yesterday, his ball placement, his pro day was on par. Like, he was the dude, right? Like, he looked good, and that's what he does well. Like, I think, when you're looking at it from just an on par perspective of what he is able to do from a ball placement level, Shedeur hits those marks. Like, Shedeur is a very fine quarterback. Now, where is he going to go? He lands. In our recent mock on our Substack, Christian Williams dropped him in the Saints and not at the top 10 pick. They traded back in the 20s and grabbed him. And I think that's a good spot for him. I think him with Kellen Moore would be great. Like, and then if he goes later, I think with Shedeur, there's less pressure, right? So the biggest thing is there's going to be less pressure on him not to be a top 10 pick. And then he just goes in that top 20 range. And now you're talking about something a little different. Now you're not talking about a top 5 pick that has a ton of, just pressure on him. Now he can kind of sit and learn if he needs to behind Carr, right? Like, those situations matter. So if Shedeur lands there, I think you're going to get a value later in that first round where he can kind of take over mid. And you're looking at a guy that's going to increase his value from a dynasty value perspective there. Now, going through the rest of the first, Egbuka, wide receiver 3. I've seen him get pushed up to wide receiver 1 all across the board there. And then you have Caleb Johnson sneaking in there at the late first. We haven't seen Caleb Johnson the first in a while. His value's been all across the board there. Really, for me, with you looking at these first round running backs, Judkins, is fine. Judkins is a fine running back in that range. Caleb is fine there too. I think really when it comes down to Caleb's landing spot, and that's a thing that people always talk about. But Caleb to me needs that zone scheme, getting downhill, having those holes open for him. And if he goes to a spot where he can just be that guy and he goes to a scheme spot, yeah, I can see him going at 112 or 201, right? And I'm not a huge Caleb Johnson guy, but I understand that landing spot really determines these things. I will say for the running backs in that second round, Damian Martinez, 207. My guy Nick going with him there. I think that's a fun pick. I haven't seen Damian go that high. We recently did one where he went like the 4th round. He's across the board. The one thing I will say about Damian Martinez is, he's an early down specialist. He's a first and second down guy. Downhill is where he's going to go. We're doing our rookie guide right now. We're almost through most of it, me and Christian. And Damian's one that keeps popping off for me, like on tape and just in general, just from a running back perspective. I've loved him ever since he went to Oregon State. I'm a Devy guy if you watch the show or channel for a long time. So I've been watching these guys for a while. And he's got that early down work, right? He can do that. Didn't have a great year in Miami last year, but then wasn't bad. Just didn't really have that breakout that many were expecting and that competition level there. But I think early down wise, he can be that guy. Like, I think that a team could look at him being just a very consistent career, right? I don't think he has a bust ceiling as high as some of these other guys. I think Neal has a bust season. I think Sampson has a bust ceiling. RJ Harvey has a bust ceiling. Like, there's a possibility of them busting out where I could see Damian Martinez still in the league. Yes, he is, right? He's still there. He's just kind of he's bouncing around, but he's still producing. And like I think that he could have that upside. I'm gonna make my 3rd pick here. I gotta see who's on the board. I'm gonna go ahead and take DJ Giddens from Kansas State. So I like that pick. I think if you can get Damian in the 3rd, which a lot of people are doing there, that's a fun area. But I like the conviction here, getting them. Other running backs taken there. Scatterbo goes at 202. He's got a weird cult following. Our boy Scatterbo, he's all across the board. Some are calling him CMC. Some will call him the White Peyton Barber. I don't know. Like, he's an interesting one. Like, that guy, his people out there, his supporters out there are just, he could do no wrong, right? Pro day, if he runs, they say, oh, that's perfect, right? And then you have other people saying, oh no, he's slow and all this other stuff. So Scatterbo is the one that kind of shocks me depending on where you see your kind of values and where they're at. I want to get to the comments here. Casual home league draft picks are overvalued like crazy. Yep. Everyone thinks they can draft well. You fit right in our Discord, Jacob. Running backs are severely undervalued. No tight end premium, half PPR. How would you approach trading in leagues like this? So this casual, the casual home leagues are always the toughest there. Well, if the draft picks are overvalued, I mean, what I would generally do is just trade my picks, right? Like if they're gonna be more overvalued and people think they can draft well, especially in a running back class like this. And I think one thing to note is running backs miss, right? I mean, there's talk about Genty, like, hey, Genty, you should trade back. He might be a can't miss prospect, but there's no such thing. We hear that all the time. But if people truly value picks like that, you could get a ransom for some of these guys while they're out there chasing potential and chasing those outliers or those running backs that they think they can draft, or those guys that they're going to kind of get in the third and fourth round who are going to be their next, Puka Nakuas. You just keep grabbing veterans and churning your roster and trying to get as many, wins as possible. I think that's the way to kind of approach that. If you do know that picks are overvalued, then just use that to your advantage, right? Like try to kind of shift off of those for those veteran guys, for those guys of scrap heap. I always use Joe Mixon as the barometer, or even Saquon last year, right? There was a lot of talk about Saquon Barkley last year heading into the year from a dynasty perspective because of Jalen Hurts, the tush push, all of that. And he became a league winner, right? So there's guys out there that are always looking to pivot off their older assets. And I say older in quotation marks because in reality, they're not that old. Just in dynasty mind, they might be old. And you can use those picks to your advantage. So use those picks. That's the one error. That's the one strategy tool you have. You know that they value those picks. So that's how I would kind of go there. Thanks, Big Jane. Work busy. Appreciate you always dropping in and kind of helping out the algorithm there. Yeah, like I said, if you have trade questions, if you have Devy questions, Dynasty, just drop them. I'll get to them as I go through this draft here. I need to kind of, man, who am I going to pick here? I'm on the clock. I am going to time out if I don't pick someone. All right, I'm going to take Woody Marks. All right, now we're going to go 5 rounds in this one, a little deeper. I know some guys are going to get picked that probably didn't come out. I'll point them out. Sleeper's still dropping the ball in terms of dudes still in this draft there, but I'm glad I got emojis and all kinds of fun things like the poop emoji down here that I can click. All right, now when you're looking at the 3rd round, let's kind of go through there. I would say, land of the running backs is the 2nd round of these rookie drafts. This is tied in premium. So Mason Taylor sitting there at 210. That's a great pick by Michael at 210. I love me some Mason Taylor. And then we look at Fannin, but I mean, you look at it, you go from Taylor, and then there's a big discrepancy there from Arroyo and Ferguson. I love the idea of getting either Taylor or Arroyo Ferguson in the back end of the 3rd in a 1.75 tight end premium. That's great value, right? I think Ferguson's one of those guys that is going to get a little higher than people think. I think that he's going to come in and kind of be that tight end that people kind of want from just a late round, good profile, in line, can play out in the slot if needed, going to be like a red zone target type of guy, very good against zone, can kind of just plug and play him in a lot of different schemes. So I love the idea of getting Ferguson late, or even Arroyo. Arroyo is the big question mark because of his injuries, late breakout, those type of things. That concerns you from an analytical profile. But overall, not a bad kind of group there to get. Now, in the 3rd round, Jalen Royals going, Harold Fannin, like I mentioned, Ale Manor's there. You kind of going through Kyle Williams. He got a little bit of love out there, according to Chris Sims. So he's kind of shooting up a little bit more. Milroe is sitting there in the 3rd. I think Milroe is he's so fun because he's going in the 2nd, 3rd round. I've seen him go as early as 202 in some drafts there. It's all fantasy upside, right? Like Milroe is all about rushing and the fantasy upside in that range. Isaiah Bond, Jack Beck, DJ Giddens sitting there tooting, Ollie Gordon. Like that's really, you see those running backs really go in that range. I keep going back to Giddens and I got a little hate yesterday on the pod, which is good. I love hate because it's good to have that discussion. It was a healthy discussion about Giddens. And I think for me, basically 2 seasons of 1,500 yards from scrimmage, can be a 3-down guy. So like I mentioned on the pod that I did, if you can be a 3-down guy, if you can be that guy that can catch passes, can get early down work, and will stay on the field, I love getting those type of profiles in the 3rd through 5th round, right? Like that's the fun of it. Like that's where the fun is at in terms of getting guys that have 3-down profiles. And if I can get that kind of value there, sitting there in that 3rd round, I'll do that all day. Like I think, I'm okay with Giddens in that range. Now, if he's going a little higher, obviously the value doesn't equate maybe what I think he can be as a ceiling play. But I do like Giddens in that 3rd, Tootin as well. All those guys kind of in that range there. All right, let's get to your comments. 6 points, passing touchdown, Devy Lee, draft next week. Sellers or Lagway? Ooh, I'm assuming that's Lagway. I'll take DJ Lagway. I like Sellers, and I do. I think Sellers has that upside in that class, but I'm taking DJ Lagway just based on potential and potential ceiling and just value, right? I think Lagway based on, recruiting category, pedigree, including what they want, just improve value. I mean, he's going basically top 5 in most Devy drafts that I've seen in Devy mocks and all of the things above. I'm going to go Lagway in that range for sure. Is it 27 the draft class I'm trying to acquire? It is stacked at wide receiver. So the big thing for you to know, like we did a big show on this, kind of looking at all the draft classes. I mean, realistically, let's move Hunter out of the discussion. So Travis Hunter doesn't count. If you put this wide receiver class with the 27 class, I would probably put Ted at wide receiver 4, right? There's probably 3 guys, Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman, that are ahead of Ted as prospects. And then there's guys coming, right? There are guys coming behind him that could definitely pop up in that 27 class that just have tons of value, right? And when we missed on some, like Mika Hudson's out there. I don't know where Mika Hudson's actually at. I don't know if he's still playing football. But there's a lot of guys in that class, Bryant Wesco, TJ Moore, and the names keep going that could definitely even pop up into that 27 class. And here's the thing about the 27 class, like, there was a question in our Discord. They said, hey, Mike Evans or 27 first? To me, it's the first, because even if you're contending, you could still use that 27 first in the middle of the year next year to go get a better piece than probably what Mike Evans is. And the reason why is because you're going to see that value go up. So acquiring 27 first is not, hey, I'm going to acquire this first and go get Jeremiah Smith. No, it's not about Jeremiah Smith only, but the fact that he's in there is what is going to help that value pick go up. You don't acquire these picks for players, just acquire them for that potential value. That's kind of how I do it. But yeah, I mean, the 27 class is there. It hasn't hit peak value yet. Some have, kind of talked about it there, but it depends on how tuned in your league is. If your league's not that tuned in like the upcoming classes 2 years out, you can still get it for a value, right? But if they are tuned in, that's going to cost you a little bit. Whereas I would argue the 26 class value-wise might be a little cheaper because people have considered it to be down. But we've seen years where people said, oh, this class is going to suck, and then all of a sudden it pops up in value. So it's all about that league market, what you have there. But in a nutshell, yeah, 27 class is where you want to go, because the quarterbacks too. If Arch goes to 27 class, whoo boy, that's going to shock that value up, right? Now, trade question here: 10-team Superflex, no tight end premium, 101 Jatavian, 27 first, 210, and Garrett Wilson. Well, Jatavian is kind of I guess Jatavian 210 is a wash. So basically, you're taking Garrett Wilson and a 27 first for the 101 and a 10-team Superflex. That's fair. I would, man, this is tough because I love me some Garrett Wilson, but I think I lean at 27 first is also in that value. And I just talked about how value that is. This is a very equal trade. So I'm going to just go off the top. Depending on team makeup, like if you're looking at your roster and Genty is a plug and play and can contend, you can go try to win a championship. I'll take the Genty side. I'll take a 101. If you're looking at your roster though, and you're like, it's kind of, I need to kind of build like a mini rebuild. I don't mind getting Garrett Wilson for a depreciated price and getting a 27 first, which I can now move if I need to. I don't mind that price either, especially in 10-team. Like if you're getting a 10-team, I'm not really as high on some of those assets there. Like I'll take just the best pieces. The best piece in this is probably the 27 first and 101. Garrett Wilson pushes it over the top for me. So I can see it on both sides. It's one of those equal trades here, but depending on team makeup, I would definitely kind of lean one way or the other. So if you can contend and you feel like Genty's that missing piece, I take Genty. If you're like, hey, I kind of want to move back, I want to kind of collect some assets, assets is the way to go on that one. All right, let's kind of go through some of these third and fourth round guys, fourth and fifth round guys. We went deep here, so we'll go through and shout out to everybody. I don't think anybody drafted today. Yeah, that's my guys. This is why I draft with you guys. No one I think drafted I don't think anybody drafted anybody that is not draft eligible. So shout out. All right, let's go to the fourth round. Restropo going in the fourth round because I think he's still running his 40, actually. I think Xavier Restropo is still out there kind of running at that 4.8 that he put on the board. Tyler Shuck out there, somebody's QB1 out there, probably a former NFL draft scout. He got him in the fourth round there. Jordan James, Taj Brooks, Brashard Smith. McCord is the interesting one from a quarterback perspective. I think him and Will Howard sitting there in that fourth and fifth round. As much as I hate Will Howard's face, he's got one of the most punchable Ohio State faces I've ever seen. If you could get him in the fifth based on just what he did, led his team to a championship, And kind of, especially even McCord from a throwing perspective, he's got that YOLO Drew lock to him. Those two guys are not bad shots in the 4th or 5th round, or even to an extent Quinn Ewers. Like, I think Quinn Ewers getting hated on a little bit too. I could see an avenue where Quinn starts some games in his career, right? I don't know where, I don't know when, but those guys are not bad shots there, especially when you're looking at the board, right? Are you taking Pat Bryant and you taking Horton, you taking some of these wide receivers that go off the board here, or are you going to take that super flex quarterback just based on value, right? I don't mind that at all. I think Howard and McCord have traits to be NFL guys because they're arms. Like, they have arm talent enough to kind of win those jobs there. Shuck has arm talent, but I don't know. The injury history, I just watched him play enough that I just kind of out on that in that range. Curtis Work's okay. You know, he reminds me of the old Patriots backup. God, why can I not remember his name? That's how you know you're getting old, folks, is we can't remember his name there, that everybody wanted behind Mac Jones. It'll come to me. If you remember that, drop it in the comments. I can't believe I cannot remember his name. But those are kind of the guys that Work reminds me of there. Finishing out that 4th round, Tez going at 407 is good value. You know, people are kind of really shocked about his 40 and his weight, but his athleticism, his separation, all of those things that he can do, like, you know, basically route running over the middle, those things the Tez Johnson way. I don't think that's going to change. The draft capital is going to be the key for Tez, right? Then you have Ricky White. My guy, go Cowboys, always drafting somebody. He said he drafted the next Puka Nacua, Isaac Tesla, or however you say it, from Arkansas. Interesting prospect. Go watch his tape. I mean, you know, if you're taking some fun shots in the fourth round picks don't matter. So if you're taking some fun shots, kind of a worse shot there. Jaquez Hunter, Jaden Blue, also sitting there. I like the Jaden Blue talk. He's more of a 3rd down receiving specialist type kid in that range. Jaquez Hunter, I mean, he led the SEC in rushing. We've seen that kind of upside from him there. So those are not bad picks there, kind of going into that range there. Disgusting. What are your thoughts on? I love me some Ty Felton. I am glad that you brought him up because I was going to draft his ass in the 5th. But he got drafted 2 picks before me, so I that sucks. But we did a wide receiver show on our Quarters podcast, and we were talking about him. I actually had him in my top 10. I don't know. There things with the thing with Ty that I really like is I just think he fits that prototypical, like, he could be an X guy, right? Like, he can really do that. At Maryland, he looked good at times. And that Maryland, here's the thing about Maryland. Maryland's offense was not great, right? And I think they struggled from a quarterback perspective. The thing with Ty, 4.37 40-yard dash, right? We like that. Like, we like that ability, what he's able to do there. I love his vertical, almost 40 inches. Shout out him, right? Really good separation at the top of his route stem. Like, he can do that very well. Creativity with the ball in his hands. Like, he's a yak guy. Like, I would argue Ty Felton, and this might be sacrilegious to say, if from a yak perspective, right, yards after catch and ability to kind of make plays after the catch, he might be better than Ted McMillan. Just from that spot, like that single trait, not every other trait. But from that trait, you watch Ty, you're like, man, this guy can generate those things. And he was really just very solid production, right? Just very solid each year, got better. The issue that I have, and I think Kyle Crabb talked about it too on the 33rd team. So shout out him. I really like Kyle Crabbs a lot. He talked about a lot of his touches came from basically slot targets, just quick, right? Screens. I think he had over 25 screens this last year, which makes you a little nervous because if those are scheme targets, how is that going to translate over to the NFL, right? And I think, you know, the physicality thing is the hard part. I think the physicality for him, you know, what does that play a role in? But I do think he can play a role. Like, I do like him. I think he's a slot guy, right? But I think he can play X too. I think he has ability there. If he plays in the slot, though, he's got to be a better run blocker. So the thing with Ty, he's got to be a better run blocker. If he's going to get there, if teams are going to project him there, he's got to get better at that range. But I do think he can kind of be just a guy that plays in the space and creates targets. And I do not mind taking a shot at his ass in the 4th or 5th round. Like, that's not a bad talent. From a talent perspective, I really like that. A lot of those guys, Pat Bryant, Ty Felton, Savion Williams, and Horton, all 4 of those guys in that range, I mean, they're all kind of the things. Cordero Patterson Jr. and Savion Williams, right? Kind of that plug it all, play it all type of guy. Pat Bryant is pretty similar to Ty in a way. I think big play guy, efficient when he got the football. Like, that's what you like. And Torrey Horton, total wild card after the injury, but basically those are the same receiver. Like that's really the same receiver there. All right, let's get into these questions. And if you got some questions, drop them. I'll get in that kind of that last round, some takeaways I have from it. But if you have any Dynasty, Devy, life questions, got to get to my guy. Got to get to my guy Jay Stein's question about Minecraft. Poor guy is sitting in Minecraft right now. I don't know how he's doing. But if you have any of those questions, drop down there. I'll get to your question in a second. No, you picked him. You picked him. I'm going with that. All right. Where in the second round do you trade for just a random future second? Same with third. 12-team Superflex start PPR 1.5 tight end premium. So what I'll do, let's just go off this board, right? At what point do I feel like you should probably, move that pick for a future second? And this is hard because I love all these picks. I think Matthew Golden's a great pick there. Higgins and Trey Harris. Like if I get Trey Harris at 208, I'd probably just look at it, especially here's the thing you have to ask yourself about the 26 class. Where would Trey Harris slot himself in a 26 class? Right now, I think Trey Harris would compete for wide receiver 1 in 26 class. Like that's how down that 26 class is right now. So I wouldn't flip him for that. I think that you're looking at it probably, to me, that 209 mark might be where I would consider it, right? Because then it might get flipped into the early second. So if I have some range there, I'd probably say around that 209. In the third, probably, if I can flip, probably in that middle row area, 305, 306. Like if I could flip just a random third for that third, I would definitely do it, right? So I would definitely kind of go in there and look at that. But I think for that first question, Trey Harris is probably that mark for me. Like I like Mason Taylor, I like Samson Neal, like they're fine players. But I think it comes just with that combined rankings. We have that on our Patreon. We have those combined rankings on our Patreon there. But, when you're looking at it from that perspective, it's like, all right, where's that value kind of cliff go? I'd say at the 208 in that one. What running back would you trade for in a competing team with the 106? My other running backs are Chain, Hall, Connor. Okay, so Chain, Hall, Connor are good. I mean, I think that is very good value. You're sitting with the 106 in terms of that. And remember, running backs are tough because I think you can get some pretty high value guys there. I don't know how you feel about I don't know where the value is off the cuff for him. I think Jonathan Taylor is a good buy right now. You might be able to get something back, maybe a third, depending on kind of the value or how your league values them. But if you could add maybe Taylor to that mix, I mean, what you're really looking at with Chain, Hall, and Connor and a 106 valuation, you're kind of looking at like when we put the picks involved in terms of what the market value is right now. You're kind of looking at maybe Jonathan Taylor. Kyron's probably sitting there. Another good one that I think, and I got some shit for in some Discords out there. I really think Kenneth Walker is an amazing buy right now. I really do. I think that when you're looking at him, we talked about it so we did a show recently, me and Jay, we're looking at who could be a number one, right? An overall one, who has that potential. And we had to look outside the top 10 running backs. Now, we were cowards, so we picked rookie running backs because that's the easy way out. But the guy that we kept coming back to is Kenneth Walker. I think just what Seattle's trying to build there, I think that you're looking at volume this year, and I think that he's a better player than Charbonnet. He's a better player than Zach Charbonnet. And I thought from a receiving standpoint, I mean, he improved. You saw his targets go over 50. He showed that he could be a 3-down guy now, right? And we've seen running backs like Kenneth Walker, like, oh, this is, I think, his last year before his second contract. We got to get rid of him here. If you're looking at kind of off the board and you're looking for a contending guy that you could probably get plus back, it wouldn't be 106 straight up for Kenneth Walker. You're going to get added there, right? So if you're going to add a running back, I always like trying to add another piece, especially with a top 6 pick. I think Kenneth Walker is the guy that I would definitely target there. Taylor, Walker in that range. James Cook could be another one. Like if you kind of looking at kind of the same profile there. But just depending on value, right? If Kenneth Walker's not valued and he's on a roster where you can kind of get him and maybe another asset, I don't mind going after the Kenneth Walker. Appreciate you. Well, that's the question, right? Like if I'm not sure, let me see where mock draft database has him. We can't really go off of that. But I think of some guys that get drafted sometimes, and I think he could. Right now, he's got a projected 5th round capital. So, and again, that doesn't mean he's gonna get drafted, but he does have a 5th round capital there. Like he is in that range. So if he goes there, the recent one I saw, Cowboys get him in the Draft Network put one out a few days ago. Cowboys got him in the 5th round, 7th round there. So I'd be shocked if he didn't get drafted. Okay. But there's also a reason why he went in the 5th round of this mock. So, perspective is needed when we talk about some of these guys. All right, let me get through some of the 5th round guys. And then if you have any questions, drop them. I'll stay on for the next 5-10 minutes. Devy, Dynasty, trade questions, whatever you got. Y'all, I'm just here to kind of hang out with you on a Saturday. So a couple things off the board here. I like these group of running backs right here. So LaQuinn Allen from Syracuse is a guy that I think, when you're looking at him, can be a home run threat. We talked about him on the show. We talked about how his lack of vision is the key for him. There's a lot of plays where I'm like, man, just wait for your blocks. Just wait for your blocks. Get open because he does have that home run ability. And you saw the production. He had it at Syracuse there. Kamagani from Rutgers, up and down player, but definitely can be a plug and play guy. And the guy I keep going back to in drafting is freaking Raheem Sanders. And I laugh about this because me and my buddy JC, we used to always talk about this when he did a little bit of content stuff. We battled between each other for Travion Henderson or Raheem Sanders for years. And then Travion Henderson now is a 1st-round pick. But Raheem had a pretty good year last year. If you look at the screen, he had 881 yards for South Carolina, 11 touchdowns. So we saw that. Did show some stuff in his receiving game. And he didn't see that before when he played at Arkansas. We didn't really see that receiving area there. And he kind of he's lighter, right? He clocked in 224 to 240 in that range. He was up at 250 the year he hurt his foot and he's playing at at Arkansas. So for me, from my perspective here, I like Raheem in the 4th, 5th round. I think Raheem Sanders can be a very just solid prospect, like a 3-down guy. Now, what's his draft capital be? It's going to be day 3. So we're not talking about it like a clear gangbuster here. Maybe he goes late day 2. Maybe. I mean, in a wildest dreams there, especially because I have Raheem in a couple of Devy rosters, so I'd love to see that value pop up a little bit. But if he can go in that early day 3 and gets a great spot, Raheem Sanders is a 3rd-down back. He is a 3-down back. He could do it all. And he really showed out last year. So if he can stay at that weight, under 240, 235 to 225, whatever that mark is, I'm all aboard the Raheem Sanders train. I think he could do really well for you from just the dynasty aspect there. Some other guys, I talked about the wide receivers already. Howard Etienne. Etienne's liked by some people. So here are some undrafted guys. Dylan Gabriel did not get drafted. Gunnar Helm did not get drafted. Gadsden did not get drafted. Brew McCoy, Donovan Edwards, Cleo Mullings, the Michigan boys, Nick Nash, Corey Kiner is an interesting one out of Cincinnati. He's a guy to watch as the draft unfolds, or possibly a priority free agent ad, someone that you add off the free agent wire going there. Kobe Hudson will always have a place in my heart because I loved him at Auburn, but Kobe Hudson from UCF. Some of these other guys there are guys to watch, when you're looking at, I know I've seen some love for Marcus Yarns out there, but at this point in the draft process, we see love for everybody. But there are some other guys, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt did not get drafted. So there's some guys out there that are available in that range. All right, let's take some last questions and we'll get out of here. The casual dynasty player loves to lowball his league mates. I don't know. I mean, no. I don't know about the casual area there. Casual dynasty player loves. So let's go with Philip. Appreciate you guys asking the trade question here. 103 plus 105 for Bijan. 12 team. Oh, that's what you were talking about. That's funny. So 12 team Superflex goes through his roster here. I mean, I'll take Bijan there. Essentially, you're looking at Ted or Hampton and maybe a quarterback. But I do think that if a team needs a quarterback, they might be willing to pay up, right? If they're in a position where they need a Cam Ward, they need someone at that spot. I understand maybe using that, and your market better than everybody, right? So for me, I take Bijan in that deal. If they basically need that quarterback, whatever. I don't think it necessarily is a low ball, but hey, you send those offers. You just got to get one person to accept. That's kind of how I look at it. Trade Bucky for Rice. So 12 team. So same kind of, different team here. Lamar, Kyler, Bijan, CMC, Bucky. So you kind of have some play there because you have Bijan and CMC with the AK there. Amon-Ra, Puka, AJ Brown, Tyreek. Man, I like Rice. I do like Rashee Rice, but I'm keeping Bucky there. I'm okay keeping Bucky there because Bucky and Bijan will kind of platoon you guys for the next couple of years in that team. CMC's fine. If he hits, great. Alvin Kamara, I think, can hit too. But I'm going to keep Bucky in that range. I like Rashee Rice. I'm a big Rashee Rice guy, but not for that price. I think that you can get something back for that. Like if you get an extra back, I think that the question marks still matter in Xavier Worthy. What are they going to do to that offense? Are they going to draft a running back? I think there's a lot of questions in the hat there. I think for Bucky, we know that built-in volume is going to be there. So I don't mind sticking with him. I know he's very high in keep trade cut. I probably wouldn't rank him where they have him. So, it depends on your rankings and where you do. Fantasy Calc's my favorite. I like Fantasy Calc a lot. But if you look at a keep trade cut, which a lot of people do, he's at running back 7, which he was higher before. He's probably at running back 4 or 5 recently. But I don't mind him at running back 7 prices, running back 7 to 10. That's okay. And when you're looking at Rashee right now and where he's at, he's at wide receiver 18. So I do think that I'd keep Bucky. If I can get Rashee plus something, I might do that. Like if I can kind of move off, get that off ramp. I talk about it all the time. Get that off ramp to get that second player, that second pick, whatever it is. That might be the area I go for sure. Like I just mentioned, yeah. So it's close, second, right? Bucky for Rice in a second. I'd be okay doing that, right? If I can get one of these running backs, that's okay. But it's basically, I would say it's a second away. That's where I would put it there. So, hey, man, appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We don't post a ton of videos anymore. We really do a lot of work over in our Substack. Go check that out. We're offering a bunch of specials this month, and we've seen a bunch of improvement there. So if you like articles, writing, rankings, all of the above, go check out our Substack or our Patreon. You can find it in the description below. But as always, just love chopping up with you guys on a Saturday. Hope you guys all enjoy your weekend, and we'll check you guys in the next one.